In Chicago, a city known for its stunning architecture and towering ambition, a chilling secret was kept for almost 2 decades. Beneath the glow of the skyline, on the city's south and west sides, forgotten neighborhoods became a predator's hunting ground. Between 2001 and 2018, something or someone stalked the streets, operating in the shadows with terrifying precision. The victims were found in the most desolate places: alleyways, abandoned buildings, garbage cans. They were daughters, mothers, and sisters. They were almost all black, and they were all dead. One by one, the number grew, until it was impossible to ignore. 51 women, most strangled or suffocated. Their deaths form one of the largest clusters of unsolved murders in the country, yet for years their stories were met with a deafening quiet. Journalism professor John W. Fountain, who led a project to give these women back their humanity, put it bluntly: if there were 51 dogs killed in the city of Chicago, we would be up in arms. These are 51 women, and we should care. For almost 20 years, a shadow moved through Chicago, leaving a trail of unimaginable loss. At least 51 women were murdered, most of them strangled, their cases left to gather dust. This is the story of women like Nancy Carolyn Walker, a 55-year-old entrepreneur who ran her own yoga studio. She was a former high school cheerleading captain with a love for dance. In January 2003, she vanished. Weeks later, her dismembered remains were found in contractor bags along a highway. Her case, like so many others, is still unsolved. This is a story about the hunt for a killer, but more than that, it's a story about the fight for the lives that were dismissed and the justice that has never come. The nightmare didn't start with a bang, it started quietly, without front-page headlines. Victim by victim, a pattern began to emerge that was as horrifying as it was consistent. The women, ranging in age from 18 to 58, were mostly black. They were found in the most desolate places on the city's south and west sides: vacant lots, garbage bins, and derelict buildings. While most had been strangled or asphyxiated, some were beaten, and some were even burned. In 2019, the Murder Accountability Project, a nonprofit that uses an algorithm to find patterns in homicides, flagged these 51 unsolved cases as having all the signs of serial murder.
Thomas Hargrove, the project's founder, stated it plainly: these 51 women were not murdered by 51 separate men. That simply did not happen.
And yet, the official response was quiet for years. While families grieved and activists tried to sound the alarm, the cases got little media attention. Many victims were quickly, and often wrongly, labeled as sex workers or drug users, a story their families have fiercely fought back against.
As Professor Fountain asked, there is this mischaracterization of these women as prostitutes and drug addicts, as if they were somehow disposable. That's just simply not the case. And even if they were, so what?
Beyond the chilling numbers are the real women, the vibrant individuals who were loved and are still deeply missed. The effort to erase them almost worked, but their families and a determined group of student journalists refused to let that happen. There was Gwendolyn Williams, a 44-year-old woman remembered by her sister as a protector. In 2002, her body was found bloody behind a dollar store. Her sister said Gwendolyn had a stranger's skin under her fingernails, proof that she was fighting for her life. Her mother passed away before ever finding out who killed her daughter. There was Rio Renee Holyfield, whose body was found in a dumpster in 2018. Her family remembers her magical voice, her love for the 4th of July, and her favorite simple pleasure, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And Nancy Carolyn Walker, who was so much more than a victim. She had studied accounting, owned 5 residential buildings, and ran a yoga and jazzercise studio. She was a pillar of life and ambition, a world away from the dismissive labels. In 2020, journalism students at Roosevelt University, led by Professor John Fountain, started the Unforgotten 51 project. They tracked down families and friends, many of whom had never even been contacted by detectives, to tell the stories of the women who had been reduced to case numbers. These women weren't disposable, they were human. They had hopes, dreams, and people who loved them. The failure to see them that way isn't just an oversight, it's the profound injustice at the heart of this tragedy. As the bodies kept turning up, year after year, the question echoed through Chicago's neighborhoods: where were the police? For the better part of 2 decades, the official line from the Chicago Police Department was that there was no evidence linking the cases or pointing to a serial killer. Activists argued that if the victims had been white women from wealthier neighborhoods, the city's response would have been completely different. It's a painful reality in America, where the cases of missing and murdered black women often get a fraction of the media coverage and police focus. Finally, in 2019, after intense pressure from activists and media, the Chicago Police Department created a task force with the FBI to review the 51 murders. They pointed out that of the DNA profiles collected from about half the crime scenes, the DNA was different in each case, which suggested multiple killers. Police did eventually make an arrest in one of the 51 cases, the murder of 21-year-old Diamond Turner. The man charged, Arthur Hilliard, was arrested in 2020, but his DNA didn't match samples from any of the other victims, only deepening the mystery. Other names have surfaced, like Darren Dion Van, a convicted serial killer from nearby Gary, Indiana, who strangled women and dumped their bodies. He even told investigators he'd killed in Illinois. But no solid link to the Chicago 51 has ever been made, and many of the murders happened after he was already in prison. The question of who is responsible, one killer or many, is still hauntingly unanswered. With little official action, the community itself rose up to demand justice. Families, activists, and local leaders refused to let the 51 women be forgotten. They organized marches, held vigils, and relentlessly pressured the city to do something. The We Walk for Her march, started in 2018 by a 13-year-old girl named Azia Roberts, was born out of pure anger that black women and girls around the city were going missing, being harmed, abducted, even murdered, and nothing was being said or done about it. For years, these grassroots efforts were the only spotlight on the cases. Activists worked tirelessly to keep the stories alive, knowing that public pressure was their only real weapon. They argued that the lack of outrage was a direct reflection of how society devalues black women. The families of the victims have carried an impossible weight. They've had to grieve while also becoming advocates, fighting a system that seemed indifferent to their pain. The sisters of Gwendolyn Williams have fought for years to see her killer caught, insisting that she was a very valuable human being, even if the world didn't act like it. This fight is about more than just finding a killer. It's about forcing a city to confront a massive failure. It's about demanding that the lives of black women be treated with the same urgency and respect as everyone else's. For nearly 2 decades, a predator or several haunted Chicago, thriving in a system that leaves marginalized communities unprotected. 51 women lost their lives, and for years, it felt like the city just looked away. Their cases are overwhelmingly unsolved, a stain on Chicago's conscience and a painful reminder of a justice system that too often fails the most vulnerable. The stories of Gwendolyn Williams, Nancy Carolyn Walker, Rio Renee Holyfield, and the 48 other women are not just true crime tales. They are portraits of humanity lost and of a fight for recognition that isn't over. They represent a profound institutional failure where the value of a life was tragically measured by race and by circumstance. For most of these families, the hunt for the killer feels like it never really began. We cannot let the memories of these 51 women become just another cold case file. Their stories must be told, their names must be remembered, and the fight for answers must go on. If you believe every life has value and that these women deserve justice, please share this story. The more people who know their names, the greater the pressure will be to finally solve these cases and bring some measure of peace to the families who have waited far too long. Don't let them be forgotten.